Hello everyone, my name is Gabby and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super review. This time reviewing episode 57. Zamasu has arrived and he says that he's Black's comrade. The two of them share the same goal, wiping the world of mortal life, including the Saiyans. Obviously, Goku and Trunks are not going to let that happen, and a 2-on-2 fight begins. Black is still stronger than both of them, but with Zamasu they're not so sure, until Trunks tries to attack him and then Zamasu heals it immediately. Apparently, Zamasu is immortal. With that, Black and Zamasu quickly overpower them and are actually about to kill them before a stray blast by Vegeta saves their lives. And from that commotion, Yajirobe grabs Goku and Trunks while the human resistance grabs Vegeta. They send them back on the time machine to the present, with Mai saying that they need to survive above all else. Meanwhile, in the present time, Gowasu is watching the Universe 6 tournament on GodTube. It's like YouTube, but for gods. Zamasu also watches Goku's fight with Hit, curious as to why he has God Ki, and also as to what those giant spheres orbiting the planet are. Gowasu explains that they're probably Super Dragon Balls, and the idea of a wish being granted piques Zamasu's interest. He storms into Zuno's place, demanding to know everything about the Super Dragon Balls. So, what did I like about this episode? Well, first of all, something I'm so glad that I'm able to say, and that is the animation. This episode, oh my god, it was really good. I mean, I think it was really good. Like, it was really good. I mean, obviously last week I was saying, Naotoshi Shida was going to do some key animation for this episode, and he did it. It was only about 30 seconds, but it was immediately noticeable and immediately really, really cool looking. I know Naotoshi Shida's style isn't really for everyone. He has this very particular way of drawing and animating limbs that some people don't really like because it's not that realistic, but you cannot deny that stuff is just exhilarating. It is just constant movement. Everything is just going so fast and you feel like you can barely keep up with it. And it is just such a wild ride to watch. Everyone's been really excited about it, and I know that some people are probably going a bit on the hype train being like, oh my god, Shida should just do everything for Dragon Ball Super. And I mean, personally, I'm first of all, I don't think that's necessarily realistic, and second of all, I feel like Shida's animation is better in moderation. If he does everything all the time, I feel like it's not gonna be as appealing because you'll kind of be used to it. But either way, obviously that part was cool, and honestly, the entire first half of the episode was animated really, really well. It was such an interesting fight. They did interesting things with camera angles, and there was a lot of movement. The animation was good. No, I'm sure the animation was great. Actually, I'm not really sure in terms of subjective animation quality, but I really enjoyed it. And obviously that's great because the animation quality has been an issue throughout the entire series, and saying that there's good stuff, really good stuff that I want to watch again, is great. That is a great thing. And even just disregarding the animation quality, I thought the idea of this fight was so interesting because it was basically a 2-on-2 fight. Goku and Trunks teaming up versus Black and Zamasu. And, they did actually use that, having these ideas that, when one character is about to get hurt, the other character steps in and tries to save them. That happened in both ends as well. It wasn't just, the heroes or the villains. They were both, using the idea of, a 2-on-2 fight, a group fight, an actual group fight where everyone's helping each other. And it's not just oh, my pride, I don't want you to help me, this is going to be strictly one-on-one or whatever. It was fun and interesting, and I really liked this idea. If they're going to do another 2-on-2 fight later on, that'll be fun. I feel like this is really an enjoyable idea for having fights like this. I also found really interesting the stuff at the end with Gowasu and Zamasu sort of watching the Universe 6 tournament and then finding out the Super Dragon Balls, and then having Zamasu decide to get really interested about the Super Dragon Balls. Because I thought that was really interesting because it's basically them actually acknowledging the events of the past arc, and I really like this idea. Because the Universe 6 tournament arc, one of the big issues was well, it was a fun little tournament arc. It felt like you kind of could have inserted it any point of the story, because it's just oh, they have a tournament and then they win the tournament and then they go back home and basically nothing actually changes. But with Zamasu actually looking at the tournament, looking at the events of the tournament, and having that be a trigger to do some of the things that he ends up doing, I think that's really interesting because it feels like this tournament is not a waste of time. It is a complete important arc that does actually directly lead into the next arc. It's good. There's consequences. There's causation and stuff here. I mean, with the whole GodTube stuff, it's very unlikely that they would have, say, witnessed Goku's fight against Golden Frieza But it makes total sense for them to be witnessing and looking over the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament fight, which explains how Zamasu knows about like Goku having God Ki and stuff like that. So it's very, very specific and it's very interesting. And especially the idea of Zamasu looking at the Super Dragon Balls and being really interested in them and wanting to know more about them. Because like, the Super Dragon Balls are things that it seems like they might have been like what got the name of this series, Dragon Ball Super, actually came from. They came from the Super Dragon Balls. So, for something that seemingly gave everyone the inspiration for the name of this series, you'd expect them to be a bit more important than like a MacGuffin that didn't even really need, like the wish wasn't even really that important. It almost felt like no one was ever going to mention the Super Dragon Balls again. But here they're not only mentioning them, but it seems like they're going to be a very important plot element. And I think that's good. It's like, we're getting proper Dragon Ball Super lore. Like not even just like Dragon Ball lore or Dragon Ball Z lore. Like specifically like Dragon Ball Super lore. They're expanding on that stuff that they talked about in the last arc. And they're using it for like other characters and for like completely new contexts. And I think that's great. It's great. I also realized I forgot to mention it last week. But yeah, so Yajirobe is alive in the future timeline. And Yajirobe is the one who saves Goku and Trunks. I mean, I thought it wasn't going to be that important. I thought it was like a fun little throwback. But it turns out now Yajirobe is somewhat important, maybe not really that important, but he's like a cameo now. He's in the timeline and it's pretty funny, and I feel like he's a really interesting personality in that kind of timeline, and that he's still kind of the sort of cynic who doesn't really want to get into fights but kind of gets thrown in them anyway. So I think that's fun. It's a fun idea. As for what I didn't like about this episode, it was just like, I mean, it's not even really a proper complaint, it's just kind of bugging me, but GodTube really... GodTube. I feel like if I actually looked through like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, they probably also had their like really current like pop culture references inserted into the show with like their own like fantasy counterpart version, and I didn't actually realize it because I wasn't catching up on Japanese pop culture at the time. But still, GodTube. And Gawasu saying he's gonna be a GodTuber, like that's a joke, but still, it's really fun, like it's funny, and I almost feel it's almost hitting a bit too close to home to me, but at the same time, I am almost a bit concerned that this feels a little bit too current, like it might make this series feel a little dated, like a few years down the track. I mean, like, in 20 years, do we even know that YouTube is going to exist? I do wonder if they're trying to make this series feel a bit too current, and as a result, like, later on down the track, it's going to feel dated. But I guess we'll see. So as for next episode, while Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks try to recover from that ass beating that they just got, seems like Zamasu is going to find out more about the Super Dragon Balls and might actually attempt to use them. I mean, I don't know how it's going to happen, but obviously that it seems like that's going to be the case. And at that point, after that, it seems like the episode league titles have run out to this point, so after next week, we're going to be kind of completely in the dark again. And considering I was really assuming that fight that we just saw was going to be the final battle, and it's not the final battle, I am very curious as to what's going to happen. The obvious assumption is that Goku and Vegeta and Trunks are going to have to try and get stronger in some way, but that might not be the case. There could be some other way. The question is, when do they go back to the future, and why, and how will they win at that point? Because if they go back in the exact same way they did last time, with the exact same strength, with the exact same tactics, they're probably going to lose again. Like literally, they have these opponents right now, and we don't know how they're going to win, and that's why it's so interesting. It could go any direction right now. The series could go any direction. I don't know. We're back in the whole, like, no one knows what's going on, and that's what's great about it thing. So that was Dragon Ball Super episode 57. Is it a bit too early to say that this arc has been saved? I mean, the thing is, when they went to the future, I had this really underlying concern, basically when I found out when people were saying that, like, maybe this arc was just going to end with that battle with Black. They were going to defeat Black. Everything was going to be, like, wrapped up in a tight little bow really, really, really quickly, and then it was just going to be like, they defeat Black with, like, no real consequences, and then Trunks is like, oh, thanks guys, thanks for defeating Black. Then everyone goes home and they kind of don't mention that this ever ended up happening. But no, thank God, that was proven wrong, because not only did they lose to them in that battle, but also it seems like Zamasu is getting a bit more of his villainous intentions in the present time, meaning this isn't going to be completely like disconnected from everything that's going on in the future, and it seems like other characters like Beerus and Whis and Kaioshin are still going to step in, and it seems like the Deus might not actually be saved by the Deus Ex Machina button either, so Obviously, this arc has gotten way more interesting than I thought it was. I don't know if the moral of the story is I should just keep my expectations really, really low again and try and think of more worst case scenarios, or maybe I should just accept that maybe this arc will actually be really, really good and like much better than I was expecting. I don't know. Either way, I'm actually excited again, and the things that I was scared that Super was going to do didn't end up happening, and that's great. I don't think I've been so happy to be proven wrong in my entire life. So this is Gabby, signing out, and I'll see you all next week. Bye, guys!